Hey guys, let's see which MJ card sold for more, week to week. In this video, we are comparing August 2nd through 8th with the previous week, and only including cards that jumped in median price. Number 1 is likely the biggest mover for an obvious reason, one you may or may not agree with. If you enjoy this and want to see more videos like it, please like, share it with another collector, and subscribe. It really helps me bring these videos to you every week. At number 40, 1997 Topps Chrome Topps 40 T5 Michael Jordan Refractor PSA 8. The median moved from $975 last week to $1,249 this week. That is up 28%. At number 39, 1987 Fleer Sticker 2 Michael Jordan PSA 5. The median moved from $275 last week to $352 this week. That is up 28%. At number 38, 1993 Finest 1 Michael Jordan Refractor PSA 7. The median moved from $2,318 last week to $2,980 this week. That is up 29%. At number 37, 1995, Topps Mystery Finest M1 Michael Jordan Refractor PSA 6. The median moved from $1,240 last week to $1,599 this week. That is up 29%. At number 36, 1988 Fournier Australis Michael Jordan Rules Card PSA 10. The median moved from $255 last week to $329 this week. That is up 29%. At number 35, 1987 to 1988 Fleer 59 Michael Jordan SGC6. The median moved from $600 last week to $775 this week. That is up 29%. At number 34, 1996 Fleer Total 04 Michael Jordan PSA 9. The median moved from $1,175 last week to $1,525 this week. That is up 30%. At number 33, 1996 Topps Mystery Finest M14 Michael Jordan Borderless Refractor PSA 8. The median moved from $1,410 last week to $1,851 this week. That is up 31%. At number 32, 1997 Skybox Z Force Boss 10 Michael Jordan PSA 9. The median moved from $494 last week to $649 this week. That is up 31%. At number 31, 1997 Collector's Choice Star Quest SQ83 Michael Jordan PSA 9. The median moved from $284 last week to $375 this week. That is up 32%. At number 30, 1996 Topps Chrome 139 Michael Jordan PSA 9. The median moved from $550 last week to $725 this week. That is up 32%. At number 29, 1990 Kenner Starting Lineup Michael Jordan Yellow PSA 8. The median moved from $250 last week to $330 this week. That is up 32%. At number 28, 1993 Stadium Club 169 Michael Jordan PSA 10. The median moved from $599 last week to $794 this week. That is up 33%. At number 27, 1997 Skybox Z Force Boss 10 Michael Jordan Super Boss PSA 8. The median moved from $900 last week to $1,223 this week. That is up 36%. At number 26, 1997 Fleer Flair Hardwood Leaders for Michael Jordan PSA 9. The median moved from $511 last week to $699 this week. That is up 37%. At number 25, 1997 Metal Universe Championship All Millennium 5 Michael Jordan Champion Spot All Millennium PSA 8. The median moved from $401 last week to $550 this week. That is up 37%. At number 24, 1994 Upper Deck MJ Rare Air 41 Michael Jordan Gold Hologram PSA 10. The median moved from $525 last week to $720 this week. That is up 37%. At number 23, 1988 A Fleer, number 17, Michael Jordan, PSA 7. The median moved from $240 last week to $330 this week. That is up 38%. At number 22, 1991 Kenner Starting Lineup Michael Jordan Dribbling, PSA 9. The median moved from $653 last week to $900 this week. That is up 38%. At number 21, 1999 Upper Deck Holographics Hall of Fame HF1 Michael Jordan, PSA 8. The median moved from $292 last week to $405 this week. That is up 39%. At number 20, 2024 Skybox Metal Universe Champions 1 Michael Jordan SP PSA 7. The median moved from $1,023 last week to $1,425 this week. That is up 39%. At number 19, 1994 Finest 331 Michael Jordan Refractor with coating PSA 9. The median moved from $4,002 last week to $5,600 this week. That is up 40%. At number 18, 1999 Upper Deck now showing NS30 Michael Jordan now showing PSA 9. The median moved from $300 last week to $427 this week. That is up 42%. At number 17, 1995 Stadium Club Warp Speed WS1 Michael Jordan PSA 7. The median moved from $840 last week to $1,200 this week. That is up 43%. At number 16, 1992 Fleer 238 Michael Jordan PSA 10. The median moved from $332 last week to $474 this week. That is up 43%. At number 15, 1997 Topps Rock Stars RS1 Michael Jordan PSA 6. The median moved from $557 last week to $799 this week. That is up 44%. At number 14, 1997 Skybox EX 2001-9 Michael Jordan PSA 7. The median moved from $252 last week to $369 this week. That is up 46%. At number 13, 1995 Ultra Double Trouble 3 Michael Jordan Double Trouble Gold Medars PSA 8. The median moved from $380 last week to $560 this week. That is up 47%. At number 12, 1998 SP Authentic 8 Michael Jordan PSA 10. The median moved from $309 last week to $460 this week. That is up 49%. At number 11, 1988 Fleer, number 17, Michael Jordan, PSA 90C. The median moved from $532 last week to $800 this week. That is up 50%. At number 10, 1986 Fleer, number 57, Michael Jordan, PSA Authenticated. The median moved from $4,350 last week to $6,550 this week. That is up 51%. At number 9, 1995, Skybox Premium Larger Than Life L1 Michael Jordan Larger Than Life PSA 6. The median moved from $413 last week to $668 this week. That is up 62%. At number 8, 1999 Upper Deck now showing NS30 Michael Jordan PSA 10. The median moved from $900 last week to $1,469 this week. That is up 63%. At number 7, 1995 Topps Spark Plugs SP2 Michael Jordan PSA 9. The median moved from $550 last week to $899 this week. That is up 63%. At number 6, 1986 Fleer. Number 57, Michael Jordan Rookie Card BGS Authenticated. The median moved from $4,250 last week to $6,950 this week. That is up 64%. At number 5, 1995 Skybox Premium Michael Jordan PSA 8. The median moved from $255 last week to $430 this week. That is up 69%. At number 4, 1992 to 1993, Topps Archives 52 Michael Jordan Gold SGC9. The median moved from $328 last week to $585 this week. That is up 78%. At number 3, 1997 Skybox EX 2001-9 Michael Jordan PSA 8. The median moved from $349 last week to $628 this week. That is up 80%. At number 2, 1985 Star Team Supers 571 Michael Jordan PSA 7. The median moved from $6,000 last week to $11,000 this week. That is up 83%. At number 1, 1985 Star Crunch N Munch 4 Michael Jordan PSA 8. The median moved from $24,100 last week to $45,600 this week. That is up 89%. This one likely sold for more because it has the NBA Gold designation. From the photo, it also appears to have really strong eye appeal. That wraps up this week's biggest MJ card movers. These are not the highest sales, they are the biggest median price moves, matched by the same card and the same grade. Some moves are stronger signals than others, so always check the comps behind the jump. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.